Our next speaker for tonight's event will be Daria Nicotera, who will be giving a presentation about the difficulties of accepting change and loss. So everyone, please welcome Daria.
The difficulty of change can be overcome by accepting losses and the acceptance of a new reality. Changes, whether big or small, demand that people change their perspectives, therefore are not accepted so easily. This can be hard. For example, it was difficult for me when my family moved from my birthplace, England, to Germany, and I suppose this is equally true for many of us in this school. Moving involves getting out of one's comfort zone and losing a familiar place. When one loses someone or something one holds dear, it can make that person feel lonely and out of place. Sometimes we decide to change, but other times life forces or imposes changes on us. Therefore, we have to cope with them. For example, when parents move for work reasons, their children must move with them, even if they don't like the idea. Even worse is when children are forced to change in order to survive. They can be displaced when in poverty, or when their parents have to move and cannot afford to take them along. Children can be used as labor migrants and can be taken to become child soldiers. Many children are victims of disasters. When children are forced into horrifying situations, neither they nor we should accept it. However, there are changes we should accept, such as loss, because if one loses someone or something, life goes on anyway and must be accepted. Loss involves the 5 stages of grief. The first stage is denial, trying to prohibit the change by not believing it. This response is temporary, and it starts to develop into an emotion, anger. The shock deflects into anger. This anger can be aimed at anyone, a family member, a friend, or even a complete stranger. To be upset with oneself or with someone else leads to the next stage, bargaining, whether someone could have done something to prevent the change from happening. Then, after the shock and anger, comes sadness, mourning over the loss, crying, and loneliness, worrying about the differences in the future. Then finally, after the depression, comes the calm, relieving moment. This is not necessarily a moment of happiness, just one of moving on, coping, and accepting. The 5 stages of grief also refer to someone leaving a place. I'm certain that many of the parents, students, and teachers at Bonn International School have experienced this type of grief. When my parents told me that I was moving, I was shocked. I did not want to believe it, and I thought it was all a nightmare. Turns out it wasn't, so I got angry at the fact that it was all actually happening. I also got upset with my parents for making the decision to move in the first place. Then I proceeded to the next stage. Almost every day, if something bad would happen in Germany, I would blame it on the fact that my parents made the decision to move in the first place. Then, whenever I would get upset, I would start feeling sad, missing my friends in England. After that, slowly, after I found my favorite chocolate and made new friends, I started to accept that I live here in Germany and tried to enjoy the new things here rather than think about the things that I left behind in England. One must adapt anyway. It's not like England's going anywhere. I can always go back and visit. One must adapt to new environments and circumstances. We should consider ourselves privileged to cope with the relatively minor changes that we have to cope with in comparison to the children in the world who experience displacement. The key to cope with change is to understand the benefits. Moving makes one more flexible and build more self-confidence. One can make new friends, learn new cultures and languages, and experience a different type of life. Change is difficult. Coping with change requires strength, adaptation, and positive thinking. Few creatures experience the transformation like the caterpillar becoming a butterfly. I suppose that caterpillar does not like to be stuck in its cocoon forever, but the change will make it fly. After all, changes do bring out beautiful results. Thank you for listening.